Purpose Over Perfection: How to Invest Your Time Wisely. Written by Ronnie Rowland. Published by Growth Literacy Lounge. Perfectionism is a silent thief. It steals your time, drains your energy, and keeps you stuck in an endless loop of overthinking, procrastination, and self-doubt. You convince yourself that you're just being thorough, that waiting for the perfect moment is smart, that refining and tweaking is necessary, but deep down you know the truth: perfectionism isn't helping you. It's holding you back. If you've ever felt paralyzed by the fear of not being good enough, struggled to start because you couldn't guarantee a flawless result, or wasted hours perfecting details that didn't matter, you are not alone. Millions of people fall into this trap, mistaking endless preparation for progress. But success doesn't come from perfect execution, it comes from purposeful action. This book is your roadmap to breaking free. It will teach you how to invest your time wisely, stop waiting for perfection, and start making real progress. Through practical strategies, mindset shifts, and time-tested productivity techniques, you'll learn how to prioritize what truly matters, overcome procrastination, and work smarter, not harder. Each chapter is designed to help you shift from perfectionism to purpose. You'll discover how to focus on high-impact tasks, create a schedule that aligns with your priorities, and build sustainable habits that lead to success without burnout. More importantly, you'll learn how to let go of impossible standards and embrace progress over perfection. The truth is, you don't need more time, you need better priorities. You don't need to be perfect, you need to start. And you don't need to do everything, you just need to do what matters. It's time to stop letting perfectionism steal your potential. Let's redefine success, reclaim your time, and take action toward a purpose-driven life. Chapter 1. The Perfectionism Trap. Perfectionism feels like a badge of honor, but in reality, it's a silent thief. It robs you of time, confidence, and progress, all while convincing you that you're just being thorough. You tell yourself you'll start that project once you have all the details figured out. You convince yourself that tweaking and refining is productive when, in reality, it's just disguised procrastination. Before you know it, days, weeks, or even years pass, and what you wanted to accomplish remains untouched. Imagine a writer who has a brilliant idea for a book, but never actually writes it because they're too busy perfecting the outline, or an entrepreneur who keeps redesigning their website but never launches the business. These aren't isolated cases. They're everyday examples of how perfectionism convinces us that we're making progress when we're really just running in circles. At its core, perfectionism is driven by fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. It tells you that if you wait just a little longer, gather more information, and tweak your plan one more time, then you'll be ready. But that perfect moment never comes. The irony is that the more you strive for perfection, the further away real success becomes. The problem isn't wanting to do things well. Excellence is a good thing. The issue arises when your pursuit of excellence turns into avoidance. Perfectionists tend to set impossibly high standards and then either overwork themselves to exhaustion or avoid the task altogether because they fear they won't meet their own expectations. This creates a cycle. You start something, obsess over every detail, feel overwhelmed and either never finish or take an excessive amount of time. Then you feel frustrated, reinforcing the belief that you're not good enough. Studies show that perfectionists are more likely to struggle with anxiety, procrastination, and burnout. Instead of taking risks and learning from mistakes, they stay stuck in analysis paralysis, constantly doubting themselves. The harsh truth is that perfectionism doesn't just waste time, it steals opportunities. Every moment spent perfecting something that doesn't need to be perfect is a moment that could have been used to make real progress. Consider Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." If he had been a perfectionist, he might have never finished the light bulb. Instead of waiting for perfection, he focused on continuous improvement, embracing mistakes as part of the process. This is the mindset shift needed to escape the perfectionism trap. The key to overcoming perfectionism is to redefine success. Instead of aiming for flawless results, shift your focus to progress. Ask yourself, did I move forward today? Did I learn something? Did I take action? These are the true markers of success. Perfectionism is an illusion, but progress is real. You don't have to get everything right on the first try. The most successful people aren't those who avoid failure, they're the ones who take action despite it. They understand that mistakes are stepping stones, not roadblocks. The sooner you embrace this mindset, the sooner you'll break free from the cycle of overthinking and actually start achieving what matters. So, what's something you've been putting off because it's not perfect yet? What's one small action you can take right now to move forward? It doesn't have to be big or flawless, just take the next step, because at the end of the day, done is always better than perfect. Chapter 2. The fear behind perfectionism. Perfectionism is rarely about the pursuit of excellence. At its core, it is fueled by fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being good enough. It disguises itself as a high standard, but in reality, it is a defense mechanism. If everything has to be perfect before it is shared with the world, then there is never a risk of failure. But the cost of this mindset is high. It keeps you stuck in endless preparation instead of real progress. Fear of failure is one of the biggest drivers of perfectionism. When failure is seen as a personal reflection of worth, every decision feels monumental. Instead of taking action and learning through experience, perfectionists overanalyze, waiting for the perfect conditions. But failure is not the opposite of success, it is a necessary part of it. Every successful person has failed. The difference is they didn't let fear stop them from trying. Fear of judgment is another powerful force behind perfectionism. Many people hesitate to share their work, ideas, or talents because they worry about how others will perceive them. They imagine the worst-case scenario: criticism, embarrassment, rejection. This fear leads to endless refinement in an attempt to shield themselves from negative feedback. But the truth is, no matter how perfect something seems, there will always be criticism. The only way to avoid judgment is to do nothing at all, and that is the greatest failure of all. Then there is the fear of not being enough. Perfectionists tie their self-worth to their achievements. If something is not perfect, they see it as a reflection of their abilities or intelligence. This creates a toxic cycle where self-worth is constantly at risk. But no accomplishment, no matter how flawless, will ever create lasting confidence. Confidence comes from action, from proving to yourself that you can do hard things, not from chasing an impossible standard of perfection. The irony is that the more perfectionists try to protect themselves from failure, judgment, and self-doubt, the more they reinforce those fears. Avoiding action only strengthens the belief that they are not ready, not capable, not good enough. The only way to break this cycle is to do the very thing fear is trying to prevent: take imperfect action. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall over and over again, but they don't stop trying because they fell once. They keep going until they get it right. Now imagine if that child refused to take another step until they were sure they wouldn't fall again. They would never learn to walk. This is what perfectionism does. It convinces you to wait until you are fully prepared, fully skilled, fully confident. But confidence doesn't come before action. It comes from action. Many people think they need to feel ready before they start. But readiness is a myth. You will never feel completely ready, and you don't need to be. You just need to begin. The more you take action despite fear, the weaker that fear becomes. The more you show up, the more confident you become. If fear of failure, judgment, or self-doubt has been keeping you stuck, ask yourself this: what is the worst that could happen? And then, what is the best that could happen? More often than not, the best-case scenario far outweighs the worst. But you will never know, unless you take the leap. Fear will always be there. It doesn't go away, but it does lose its power when you stop giving in to it. You don't need to be fearless to take action. You just need to be willing to act despite fear. And once you do, you'll realize that the thing you were so afraid of was never as scary as it seemed. Chapter 3. From stagnation to progress. Perfectionism creates an illusion of progress while keeping you stuck. You make plans, gather information, and fine-tune details, but nothing truly moves forward. You feel busy, but at the end of the day, there's little to show for it. The problem isn't a lack of effort, it's misplaced effort. When perfectionism controls your decisions, you focus more on getting things right than getting things done. As a result, you stay in a cycle of stagnation, always preparing but never executing. The longer you wait for the perfect moment, the harder it becomes to take action. Waiting becomes a habit. You tell yourself you'll start when you have more time, more knowledge, or more confidence, but that moment never comes. Instead, self-doubt increases, and the fear of starting grows stronger. You begin to believe that if you haven't started yet, maybe you're not ready, not skilled enough, or not capable. But this is a lie. The only thing holding you back is inaction itself. Progress doesn't come from thinking about what you want to do, it comes from doing it. The difference between people who achieve their goals and those who don't isn't talent, intelligence, or resources. It's action. Successful people don't wait for confidence or clarity, they move forward despite uncertainty. They understand that clarity comes from doing, not from endless planning. Consider an artist staring at a blank canvas. If they hesitate to make the first brushstroke out of fear that it won't be perfect, the canvas remains empty. But once they start, they create momentum. The same principle applies to any goal. Whether it's writing, starting a business, or learning a skill, the hardest part is the beginning. Once you take action, even if it's messy or imperfect, the process becomes easier. One reason perfectionists struggle to start is because they focus on the entire journey instead of the first step. They see the gap between where they are and where they want to be and feel overwhelmed. But no one achieves success in one giant leap. Every accomplishment is the result of small, consistent actions. Instead of trying to do everything at once, shift your focus to just the next step. Another common mistake is waiting for motivation. Many people believe they need to feel inspired before taking action. But motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes, and if you depend on it, you'll never make consistent progress. The real key is discipline, taking action even when you don't feel like it. Action creates momentum, and momentum creates motivation. The more you do, the more motivated you become. The simplest way to break free from stagnation is to commit to imperfect action. Give yourself permission to start before you feel ready. Lower the stakes. Instead of aiming for perfection, aim for progress. Set a small, achievable goal and take immediate action. If you're writing a book, commit to writing one paragraph today. If you're launching a business, take one concrete step toward making it real. If you're learning a skill, practice for just 5 minutes. What matters is that you start. Over time, small actions add up. What once felt intimidating becomes second nature. You gain experience, improve your skills, and build confidence. You no longer feel paralyzed by fear because you've proven to yourself that you can take action despite it. And as you move forward, perfectionism loses its grip. Progress is always better than perfection. Done is always better than waiting. If you find yourself stuck, ask yourself this: what's the smallest step I can take right now? Then take it. Because once you start moving, everything else becomes easier. Chapter 4. Done is better than perfect. Perfectionism convinces you that something isn't worth doing unless it's done flawlessly. It tells you that every detail must be refined, every outcome controlled, and every risk eliminated before you take action. But in reality, this mindset kills progress. Instead of finishing, you tweak, overanalyze, and hesitate. Instead of moving forward, you stay stuck in endless revisions, hoping to reach an impossible standard. The truth is, done is always better than perfect. When you prioritize completion over perfection, you shift your focus from how something looks to what it actually accomplishes. A project that is finished but imperfect has far more value than one that is flawless but unfinished. A writer who publishes an imperfect book reaches readers. An entrepreneur who launches a business with flaws still impacts customers, but the person who spends years refining an idea without ever executing remains invisible. No one benefits from something that never sees the light of day. People often hesitate to finish because they believe their work isn't good enough. They fear criticism, rejection, or the possibility of failure. But perfection is subjective. What one person sees as a flaw, another may see as authenticity. What you think isn't ready might be exactly what someone else needs. The longer you delay, the more opportunities you miss. Every moment spent chasing perfection is a moment stolen from real progress. Many of the world's most successful people achieved greatness not because they were perfect, but because they were willing to release imperfect work. Best-selling authors write books filled with first-draft mistakes that are later refined through editing. Innovators launch products with flaws and improve them over time. No one gets it right the first time, and those who try often never get started at all. If you wait for perfection, you will wait forever. Every masterpiece begins as a rough draft. Every skill starts at a beginner level. No one expects perfection from others, yet perfectionists hold themselves to an unrealistic standard. They believe that if they make a mistake, they will be judged harshly. But the world doesn't work that way. People admire those who take action, learn from their experiences, and improve as they go. A powerful way to shift out of the perfectionist mindset is to set deadlines. Give yourself a specific amount of time to complete a task, then commit to finishing no matter what. Instead of obsessing over every detail, focus on making progress. Set a goal to finish the first draft, launch the project, or send the email. Once it's done, you can always refine it later. But if you never finish, you never have anything to refine. Another strategy is to embrace imperfection as part of the process. Instead of seeing mistakes as failures, see them as feedback. Every mistake teaches you something. Every attempt moves you forward. The faster you fail, the faster you learn. Growth doesn't come from avoiding imperfection, but from embracing it. Ask yourself this. Would you rather have something completed today or something perfect that never gets finished? Imagine looking back 5 years from now. Will you be glad you started, even if your early attempts weren't perfect? Or will you regret waiting, wishing you had taken action sooner? The answer is clear: progress matters more than perfection. Perfectionism is a trap. It keeps you in a cycle of doubt, hesitation, and unfinished work. The only way out is to accept that done is always better than perfect. What you finish today will always be more valuable than what you keep refining in secret. The real challenge isn't achieving perfection, it's having the courage to put your work into the world, flaws and all. So take a step forward. Finish what you started, because once it's done, you can improve it. But if it's never done, it will never exist. Chapter 5. The 80-20 Rule for Time Investment. Time is your most valuable resource, yet most people spend it on the wrong things. They get lost in minor details, waste hours on tasks that don't matter, and focus on being busy rather than productive. Perfectionists, in particular, tend to treat everything as equally important, obsessing over small refinements instead of making real progress. But the truth is, not all tasks are created equal. The 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, reveals a better way to invest your time. The 80-20 rule states that roughly 80% of results come from 20% of efforts. This principle appears everywhere. In business, 80% of revenue often comes from 20% of customers. In fitness, 80% of progress results from 20% of exercises. In relationships, 80% of meaningful interactions come from 20% of people. The same applies to productivity. Only a small portion of your efforts truly move the needle. The rest is often wasted time. Most people, especially perfectionists, spend too much time on low-impact activities. They over-research, edit excessively, or focus on tasks that make them feel productive but don't drive real results. The 80-20 rule forces you to ask, what are the few things that truly matter? Instead of trying to do everything perfectly, focus on doing the right things efficiently. Start by identifying your high-impact tasks. If you're a writer, 20% of your work, actually writing, produces 80% of the results, while obsessing over fonts or formatting does little to move you forward. If you're building a business, 20% of your customers may generate 80% of your sales, meaning focusing on them is more valuable than trying to attract everyone. The goal is to eliminate or minimize the tasks that don't contribute significantly to your success. One simple way to apply the 80-20 rule is to make a list of everything you do, then highlight the top 20% that creates the most impact. Ask yourself, if I could only complete 1 or 2 tasks today, which would bring the greatest results? This forces you to prioritize and cut the unnecessary. Instead of perfecting every email, focus on writing the important ones. Instead of endlessly tweaking a project, move on once the key parts are in place. Perfectionists often resist this approach because it feels like lowering standards. But efficiency isn't about doing less work, it's about doing the right work. You can spend 5 hours refining a presentation that was already good enough after 1, or you can use that extra time on something more valuable. The goal isn't to do things poorly, but to recognize when more effort won't create a meaningful difference. Another way to implement the 80-20 rule is through time blocking. Instead of spending hours making small, unnecessary adjustments, allocate time limits to tasks. Give yourself a set amount of time to work on something and then move on. This prevents overthinking and forces you to focus on what truly matters. The result? You finish faster, with better outcomes, and without the exhaustion of perfectionism. One of the biggest benefits of applying the 80-20 rule is that it reduces stress. When you stop treating every task as equally important, you free yourself from unnecessary pressure. You recognize that some things simply don't deserve your energy. This doesn't mean cutting corners or doing sloppy work. It means focusing on what actually moves you forward. Think about where you currently spend your time. How much of it is going toward tasks that truly matter? If you find yourself caught in the trap of overworking on low-impact tasks, challenge yourself to step back. Identify your most valuable actions, eliminate distractions, and commit to focusing on what actually makes a difference. Because when you work smarter, not harder, you achieve more in less time, with far less stress. Chapter 6. The Power of Small Wins. Progress is often mistaken for big, dramatic leaps forward. People believe that success comes from major breakthroughs, massive changes, or overnight transformations. But in reality, true progress is built on small, consistent wins. The perfectionist mindset resists this idea because it craves grand achievements and flawless execution. It convinces you that if something isn't significant, it doesn't count. But the truth is, small wins compound over time, creating momentum that leads to lasting success. Small wins shift your focus from perfection to progress. Instead of waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect plan, you take action. Each small accomplishment reinforces your belief that you can succeed. When you complete a task, no matter how minor, your brain releases dopamine, a chemical that creates a sense of accomplishment and motivates you to keep going. This is why breaking tasks into smaller steps makes even the biggest goals feel achievable. Perfectionists often struggle to start because they feel overwhelmed by the magnitude of their goals. They see the end result and focus on everything that needs to be done, making it feel impossible. But progress doesn't require giant leaps, it requires consistent, small actions. Writing a book doesn't happen in one sitting. It happens by writing a few paragraphs each day. Getting fit doesn't require extreme workouts. It starts with a single workout and builds from there. The key is to lower the barrier to entry and focus on manageable steps. One way to implement small wins is through the 2-minute rule. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it immediately. This prevents procrastination and builds a habit of taking action. If a goal seems too big, break it down into 2-minute tasks. Instead of aiming to write a book, aim to write for 2 minutes. Instead of committing to an hour-long workout, start with 2 minutes of movement. Often the hardest part is getting started, and once you begin, you'll naturally keep going. Another powerful strategy is to track progress. Perfectionists tend to overlook small achievements because they're focused on what's still unfinished. Keeping a record of daily wins, no matter how small, shifts your mindset. A simple checklist, journal, or habit tracker can reinforce progress and keep you motivated. When you see evidence of your efforts, you're more likely to stay committed. Momentum is the secret weapon of success. When you consistently achieve small wins, you create a sense of progress that pushes you forward. Small wins build confidence, and confidence fuels more action. This is why people who start with small, manageable steps often outperform those who wait for the perfect conditions. They develop habits that create long-term success, while perfectionists remain stuck in planning. The most successful people in any field don't wait for motivation, they create it through action. They understand that progress isn't about doing everything at once, it's about doing something every day. Instead of aiming for perfection, they focus on continuous improvement. A 1% improvement each day may seem insignificant, but over time, it leads to exponential growth. If you've been putting off something because it feels too big or overwhelming, shift your focus. Ask yourself, what is the smallest step I can take today? It doesn't have to be perfect or impressive, just something that moves you forward. Once you take that step, take another, and another. Before you know it, those small wins will add up, and you'll realize how much progress you've made. Perfectionism convinces you that only big achievements matter. But in reality, small wins are what drive meaningful progress. They create momentum, build confidence, and lead to lasting success. So instead of waiting for the perfect moment, start small. Take action today. Because small wins, repeated consistently, lead to extraordinary results. Chapter 7. The Purpose-Driven Schedule. Most people don't have a time problem, they have a priority problem. They spend their days reacting to demands, distractions, and obligations instead of intentionally investing their time in what truly matters. Perfectionists struggle even more. because they get stuck over planning, overanalyzing, and refining their schedules instead of executing them. A purpose-driven schedule is the antidote. Instead of letting time control you, you take control of time by aligning your daily actions with your true priorities. A schedule driven by purpose begins with clarity. Without a clear understanding of what truly matters, it's easy to waste time on unimportant tasks. Many people feel busy but accomplish little because they mistake movement for progress. The first step is to identify what is essential. What are the most meaningful tasks that contribute to your long-term goals? What activities align with your values? Once you define these, your schedule becomes a tool for intention, rather than a list of obligations. One of the most effective ways to create a purpose-driven schedule is time blocking. Instead of working reactively, you assign specific time slots to important activities. This prevents decision fatigue and eliminates distractions. Successful people don't just work from a to-do list, they schedule time for what matters most. Whether it's deep work, exercise, or personal time, blocking off dedicated time ensures that priorities don't get lost in the chaos of the day. Perfectionists often spend too much time on tasks that don't need it. They struggle with time inflation, where simple tasks expand beyond what's necessary. A purpose-driven schedule prevents this by setting time limits. If a task should take an hour, give it an hour and move on. Parkinson's law states that work expands to fill the time allotted. By setting constraints, you force efficiency and eliminate overworking tasks that are already good enough. Another key principle is the rule of 3. Instead of overwhelming yourself with an endless to-do list, identify the 3 most important tasks for the day. These are the tasks that, if completed, will create the biggest impact. Focusing on fewer but more meaningful tasks leads to greater productivity and reduces the stress of an overloaded schedule. The goal is not to do more, it's to do what matters. A purpose-driven schedule also includes space for recovery. Perfectionists tend to overwork themselves, believing that more effort equals better results. But real productivity isn't about doing more, it's about doing better. Rest and reflection are essential for sustained performance. Scheduling breaks, downtime, and activities that recharge you prevents burnout and enhances focus when you return to work. Eliminating distractions is another critical factor. A schedule filled with purpose loses its power when interrupted by constant notifications, emails, and social media. Multitasking is a myth, it divides attention and reduces effectiveness. Protecting your schedule means creating boundaries. Turn off notifications, set specific times for email, and create an environment that supports deep work. Perfectionists often resist structured schedules because they fear losing flexibility. But the reality is that structure creates freedom. When you design your day around what matters, you eliminate wasted time and gain more control over how you spend it. A flexible but intentional schedule allows for spontaneity without sacrificing progress. A powerful way to reinforce a purpose-driven schedule is through reflection. At the end of each day, review what worked, what didn't, and what can be improved. Did you spend time on what truly mattered? If not, adjust for tomorrow. Progress isn't about getting it perfect, it's about refining as you go. If you've struggled with feeling busy but unproductive, it's time to take control. Instead of letting the day dictate your actions, design your schedule with intention. Block time for priorities, limit unnecessary tasks, and protect your focus. A purpose-driven schedule isn't about doing everything, it's about doing the right things. When your time aligns with your purpose, success follows naturally. Chapter 8. Beating procrastination for good. Procrastination is not about laziness. It is a defense mechanism, a way of avoiding discomfort, uncertainty, or fear of failure. Perfectionists struggle with procrastination more than most because they set impossibly high standards and then hesitate to start unless they can guarantee a flawless outcome. The result is a cycle of delay, guilt, and last-minute scrambling. The key to overcoming procrastination is understanding why it happens and replacing avoidance with action. Procrastination often stems from overwhelm. When a task feels too big or complex, the brain seeks relief by shifting attention to easier, less important activities. Instead of writing the report, you check emails. Instead of starting the project, you organize your desk. These tasks provide temporary satisfaction, but they do nothing to move you forward. The solution is to break big tasks into smaller, more manageable steps. If starting feels intimidating, reduce the task to something so small that resistance disappears. Instead of writing an entire chapter, commit to writing one sentence. Once you start, momentum takes over. Fear is another major driver of procrastination. The fear of failure, criticism, or not being good enough can make starting feel impossible. Perfectionists often tell themselves they will begin when they feel ready, but readiness is a myth. Confidence doesn't come before action, it comes from action. The best way to silence fear is to take a step forward, no matter how small. Progress reduces anxiety far more than waiting ever will. One of the most effective strategies for beating procrastination is the 5-minute rule. Tell yourself you will work on a task for just 5 minutes. This removes the pressure of completing the entire task and tricks the brain into starting. Once those 5 minutes pass, you will likely continue working because the hardest part, getting started, is behind you. Even if you stop after 5 minutes, you will have made progress, which is always better than doing nothing. Another approach is the do-it-now principle. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, complete it immediately. This prevents small tasks from piling up and eliminates the mental burden of remembering them later. If something requires more time, schedule it rather than letting it linger on your to-do list. The longer a task sits undone, the bigger it feels, making it even harder to start. Perfectionists often convince themselves they need ideal conditions to begin. They wait for motivation, inspiration, or the perfect amount of time. But waiting creates inaction. Professionals don't rely on motivation, they build habits. Setting a consistent work routine, free from emotional decision-making, eliminates the question of do I feel like it. Instead of relying on willpower, you create systems that ensure progress. Eliminating distractions is another crucial step. Many people procrastinate by unconsciously setting up obstacles that make work harder. Social media, notifications, and an unstructured environment invite procrastination. Creating a focused workspace, using website blockers, and setting designated work times remove common triggers and make it easier to stay on task. Accountability is a powerful tool for overcoming procrastination. When you commit to someone else, you are far more likely to follow through. Sharing your goals with a friend, joining a group, or using an accountability partner creates external pressure that keeps you on track. Deadlines, even self-imposed ones, increase urgency and reduce the temptation to delay. One of the biggest mindset shifts in overcoming procrastination is embracing imperfection. Perfectionists delay because they fear an imperfect outcome, but action, even if flawed, is always better than inaction. Done is better than perfect. Every expert, every successful person, started before they felt ready. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent, it's their willingness to take action despite uncertainty. If you've been procrastinating on something important, take one small step right now. Don't wait for the perfect moment, it will never come. Progress starts the moment you stop delaying and start doing. Even imperfect action moves you forward, and that is the only way real success happens. Chapter 9. Saying no to perfectionism and distractions. Every time you say yes to something, you are saying no to something else. Time and energy are limited, yet many people, especially perfectionists, spread themselves too thin by trying to do everything. They feel obligated to meet expectations, take on extra work, and perfect every detail. The result is exhaustion, frustration, and a constant feeling of falling behind. Learning to say no is not about doing less, it's about doing what truly matters. Perfectionists often struggle with saying no because they fear disappointing others. They worry that rejecting requests will make them seem unreliable, unhelpful, or selfish. But constantly saying yes to others means saying no to your own priorities. You cannot do everything, and trying to will only lead to burnout. The most successful people are not the ones who do the most, but the ones who focus on what matters most. Distractions are another major drain on time and focus. In a world filled with endless notifications, emails, and social media updates, staying focused is harder than ever. Many distractions masquerade as productivity. Checking emails, responding to messages, and attending unnecessary meetings may feel like work, but they often prevent deep, meaningful progress. The ability to say no to distractions is just as important as saying no to unnecessary commitments. One of the best ways to protect your time is by setting clear boundaries. If you do not define your priorities, someone else will. Instead of reacting to every request, decide in advance what deserves your time. block out time for deep work, schedule breaks intentionally, and limit how often you check emails or social media. Boundaries are not about isolation, they are about focus. Saying no does not have to be rude or aggressive. A polite but firm response is enough. If someone asks for your time, and it does not align with your priorities, you can say, "I appreciate the offer, but I can't commit right now." If a task feels unnecessary, ask yourself if it truly contributes to your goals. If it doesn't, delegate it, postpone it, or remove it entirely. One of the biggest distractions perfectionists face is the temptation to overwork tasks that do not need it. Not everything requires 100% effort. Some tasks are worth doing well, but many only need to be completed. The 80-20 rule applies here. Most results come from a few key actions. Spending extra hours perfecting something minor is often a waste of time. Knowing when to stop is just as important as knowing when to start. The fear of missing out can also lead to saying yes too often. People worry that declining an opportunity means losing a chance for success. But success does not come from doing everything, it comes from doing the right things. Every time you say yes to something unimportant, you are saying no to something meaningful. Instead of fearing missed opportunities, trust that by focusing on your priorities, you are making space for the right opportunities. One effective strategy for reducing distractions and unnecessary commitments is the not-to-do list. Instead of only listing what you need to do, list the things you should stop doing. This could include checking social media in the morning, responding to every email immediately, or saying yes to every request. Being intentional about what you avoid is just as powerful as being intentional about what you pursue. If you struggle with saying no, start small. Say no to one unnecessary meeting. Turn off notifications for an hour. Decline one request that does not align with your priorities. Each small step strengthens your ability to protect your time. Perfectionism and distractions will always compete for your attention. The only way to make progress is to take control. Saying no is not about limiting yourself, it is about freeing yourself to focus on what truly matters. Prioritize your time wisely, because every yes should be a yes to something meaningful. Chapter 10. The Mindset Shift, Purpose over Perfection. Perfectionism is a mindset, and like any mindset, it can be changed. The belief that everything must be flawless before it is considered valuable is what keeps people stuck. The truth is, perfection is an illusion, and chasing it only leads to frustration, procrastination, and burnout. Shifting your focus from perfection to purpose is the key to breaking free. When your actions are driven by meaning rather than an impossible standard, you gain clarity, confidence, and momentum. Purpose over perfection means valuing progress over appearance. Many people waste time trying to make things look perfect rather than focusing on real impact. A writer spends hours rewriting a paragraph instead of finishing the chapter. A business owner tweaks the logo instead of serving customers. A student refines notes instead of actually learning. The pursuit of perfection creates an endless loop of revisions without meaningful results. Shifting to a purpose-driven mindset means asking, is this moving me closer to my goal? Or am I just making it look better? Perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards, but true excellence comes from learning and growth, not from avoiding mistakes. Every successful person understands that progress comes from action, not endless planning. The best athletes, artists, and entrepreneurs didn't wait until they were perfect to start. They improved by doing. The difference between those who succeed and those who don't isn't talent, it's the willingness to take imperfect action. A purpose-driven mindset focuses on impact. Instead of asking, is this perfect? Ask, does this serve a purpose? If you are working on something, consider whether the extra effort adds real value, or if it is just a way to delay finishing. Sometimes, good enough is truly good enough. The goal is not to lower standards but to direct energy toward what matters most. Excellence is achieved through repeated effort, not endless perfection. Reframing failure is another key to shifting your mindset. Perfectionists fear failure because they see it as a reflection of their worth. But failure is simply feedback. It shows what works and what doesn't. The most successful people don't fear failure, they embrace it. They see mistakes as stepping stones, not as signs to stop. Instead of avoiding failure, use it as a tool for growth. Each setback is an opportunity to learn and adjust. One practical way to reinforce a purpose-driven mindset is to set impact goals rather than perfection goals. A perfection goal focuses on making something flawless, while an impact goal focuses on meaningful progress. For example, instead of aiming to write a perfect article, set a goal to write and publish it. Instead of waiting until you feel fully prepared to start a project, commit to taking the first step. Shifting from perfection to impact helps you take action with confidence. Letting go of perfectionism also requires self-compassion. Perfectionists are often their own worst critics, holding themselves to unrealistic expectations. If a friend made a mistake, you would encourage them to keep going. Apply the same kindness to yourself. No one achieves great things without struggle, setbacks, and imperfections. Instead of focusing on what went wrong, celebrate what you did right. Progress, no matter how small, is worth acknowledging. Shifting from perfection to purpose doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you start caring about the right things. You invest time in what truly matters instead of what only appears important. You take action instead of waiting. You embrace learning instead of fearing failure. The result is a life that is not just productive but also fulfilling. If perfectionism has been holding you back, ask yourself, what would I do today if I wasn't afraid of imperfection? Then take that step. Because purpose will always move you forward, while perfection will always keep you stuck. Choose progress. Choose impact. Choose purpose over perfection. Chapter 11. Sustainable Time Management. Time management isn't about squeezing more tasks into your day, it's about making time for what truly matters. Perfectionists often approach productivity with an all-or-nothing mindset. They try to control every minute, optimize every detail, and create rigid schedules that collapse under the weight of unrealistic expectations. When they fall behind, they feel like they've failed. The key to sustainable time management is flexibility, intentionality, and focusing on progress instead of perfection. Sustainable productivity starts with realistic planning. Many people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can accomplish in a month or a year. Instead of setting an overwhelming list of daily tasks, focus on the most meaningful ones. The rule of 3 is a powerful method. Each day, identify 3 high-impact tasks that will move you forward. Completing 3 important things consistently is far more effective than attempting 10 and finishing none. Perfectionists often struggle with time management because they get stuck in low-value tasks. They spend hours refining work that was already good enough, over-researching decisions, or organizing instead of executing. The 80-20 rule applies here. 80% of meaningful results come from 20% of efforts. Identify the tasks that drive the biggest impact and prioritize them. If something doesn't contribute significantly to your goals, delegate it, automate it, or eliminate it altogether. One of the biggest mistakes in time management is treating every task as urgent. Not everything requires immediate attention. The Eisenhower matrix is a simple tool to categorize tasks urgent and important, important but not urgent, urgent but not important, and neither urgent nor important. Prioritizing important tasks over urgent distractions helps you focus on long-term progress, instead of constantly reacting to immediate demands. Another key to sustainable time management is energy management. Productivity isn't just about time, it's about how you use your energy. Some tasks require deep focus, while others can be done with low energy. Identify when you are most mentally alert and schedule your hardest work during those times. Use lower energy periods for routine or administrative tasks. Instead of trying to power through exhaustion, work with your natural rhythms. Perfectionists often resist breaks, believing that constant work equals higher productivity. But research shows that taking breaks improves focus, creativity, and overall performance. The Pomodoro technique, working in focused sprints with short breaks, can increase efficiency while preventing burnout. Rest isn't a waste of time, it's an investment in long-term productivity. One of the most powerful time management strategies is setting boundaries. Without boundaries, other people's priorities will consume your time. Say no to unnecessary meetings, limit distractions, and protect your focus. Social media, emails, and notifications create endless interruptions. Setting designated times for checking messages and turning off notifications during deep work sessions can reclaim hours of lost time. Sustainable time management also means accepting imperfection. Perfectionists waste time trying to make everything flawless, but some tasks only require completion, not perfection. Recognizing when good enough is truly good enough frees up time for higher value activities. Reflection is a critical part of improving time management. At the end of each day or week, Evaluate what worked and what didn't. Did you spend time on what truly mattered? Where did you get distracted? What can be improved? Adjusting your approach regularly ensures that your time is being used effectively. The ultimate goal of time management isn't just productivity, it's creating a life that aligns with your values and priorities. Working efficiently is important, but so is making time for rest, relationships, and personal growth. Time is your most valuable resource, and once it's spent, you can't get it back. The question isn't how much you can do in a day, it's whether you're spending your time on what truly matters. Focus on sustainable habits, not perfection, and you'll achieve more with less stress. Take care and be well.